Wake up! It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast with Dr. Chris Winner, episode 43, In a Deep, Deep Sleep. Where do you go for deeper sleep? Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Dr. Chris Winner. I'm a neurologist and sleep specialist. Happy that you're here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a veteran, welcome back. We've got a big show today. This is going to be a fun topic, deep sleep. You know, when you look at communications and individuals talking about sleep or working on their own sleep, seeking things that will allow an individual to get deeper sleep are important. And something that we hear a lot about. People are constantly looking for ways to improve their deep sleep, to hack their deep sleep. What do you take to improve your performance? And we talked a little bit about this in episode 12 with the sleep and athletic performance, that when you work with professional athletes, it's all about performance, it's all about recovery. And that really happens through the portal of deep sleep. When we're not getting deep sleep, we're not creating growth hormone, and we're not, if you're young, you're not growing. If you're an older individual, you're not recovering. You're not living your most energetic, youthful life. So deep sleep is definitely a hot commodity. So we'll get into some ways we can improve our deep sleep, look at some research about that, and maybe more importantly, looking at the relative amounts of deep sleep increase that these things can or don't provide. So if you want to get in touch with me or follow me, my social media handles on Twitter and Instagram are Dr. Chris Winner. You can find me there, communicate, ask questions, send corrections, comments, interact with the show. We've gotten a lot of correspondence over the last week. Sorry I haven't been able to get to everybody's messages. A quick correction. Oh, I've got 2 books, The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep's Broken and How to Fix It, as well as The Rested Child. We also have a YouTube channel. If you want to watch videos of the show, they're posted on the Sleep Unplugged YouTube channel. Quick correction from last week. I mentioned my primary care doctor, Bill Fox, being the incoming president of the American Academy of Physicians or something of that nature. It's the American College of Physicians. So just wanted to correct that. 2 quick messages before we get going. One is from Alexander. Alexander wrote, "What is mattress tour?" Thank you, Alexander. Thanks for listening to the show, and thanks for following my Instagram. What he's referring to on my Instagram page is a couple of years ago, May of 21, I was out in Boise, Idaho. I just started working for sleep.com. And they're actually owned by Mattress Firm, and we were out in kind of in Boise, and I saw a Mattress Firm. I took my picture in front of it and just posted it, and thought it'd be fun to see if I could visit a Mattress Firm in every state of the union. Nobody asked me to do it. It's kind of fun to go in and interact with the sleep experts that are there and just kind of ask them, what do you think? Why did you get involved in sleep? How long have you been involved in this element of sleep, and what are your tips for great sleep? So going around the country, and I try to make it a point to stop into a Mattress Firm, and now I'm on state number 36. I was just out in Iowa and Nebraska, made a quick little trip up to South Dakota. So we're getting there. We're 14 states away from doing it. So thanks for the question. That's all that entails. Nothing more, nothing less. The next, I just wanted to highlight a very nice message I received from Jonathan. I'm not going to mention his last name just because I'm not sure about, he's a military person, and I'm not sure how those kinds of privacy things work. But Jonathan wrote, "Thanks for providing a positive example of resilience with regard to sleep issues. Your advice and insight, especially on sleep misperception." And that was we did a talk on sleep state misperception. That was, God, what was that episode? Sorry, I thought I'd be able to jump on that a lot faster. Paradoxical insomnia. That was episode 20. Your advice on sleep state misperception The benefits of resting and healthy responses to difficult nights has proven extremely valuable to me. I'm an Army aviator, Apache helicopters. Thank you for your service. And have been serving for over 28 years, multiple combat deployments. Concerns about difficult sleep and its effect on performance has always troubled me. While I've learned a tremendous amount through basic CBTI, and we've talked about CBTI, that was a really big episode too. That was episode 33. Your reassuring words have made the greatest difference. I continue to work on it, but now I know that all my healthy preparation does pay off. I do sleep more than I believe, and resting, which is totally in my control, like meditation, is also extremely beneficial, even if sleep eludes me. I continue to follow your podcast, and we appreciate that. Thanks for your authenticity and guidance for all of us. We're learning to handle this tough situation in healthy, positive ways. Sir, I really appreciate that. That resonates a lot with me, as do all of your messages to the podcast. Really, really appreciate. Keep them coming. Before we get going, the title of the podcast today, In a Deep, Deep Sleep, Where Do You Go for Deeper Sleep, is actually a little reference to two artists. The first is In a Deep, Deep Sleep is from Radiohead and their single Airbag, which was the lead single for their 1997 OK Computer album. That was their third studio album and a huge departure from the Bends, the big introspective, guitar heavy album that I think one of the band members said if we had tried to make the Bends again, we would have broken up. OK Computer was a massive success, even though the label said they were really upset with Radiohead when they produced that album. They said there's nothing here. We project sales to be, less than 500,000, and it was huge. It was nominated for Album of the Year. I think it eventually lost to Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind, which is a great album. But Radiohead is really an iconic album, and on a bunch of top albums of all time list up way up there at the top. And the other reference in the title, Where Do You Go for Deeper Sleep, is a little alteration of the line, going out in the deep sleep, where do you go in the big sleep? That was from the Simple Minds song Big Sleep off their New Gold Dream album. That was their fifth studio album for the Scottish band, and it was a real turning point for that band as well too. That really launched them into a very different level of success. They would follow that up with, what was I can't remember what their next album was, Sparkle or something like that. But then their next album was one of my favorite albums of all time, which is Once Upon a Time. So two of my favorite artists here talking about deep sleep. So let's get into it. What do we do to get the big deep sleep? Where do we go for the big deep sleep? And I think the place I'd like to start, which is the place I think we get the most bang for the buck, is probably exercise. Exercise has been shown to increase deep sleep in many studies across the board. There was a 1985 Japanese study that I remember reading when I first got into sleep medicine, where they looked at 14 healthy male volunteers. They were basically doing exercise for 40 minutes in a cycle 4 times a day. So this was a big change in exercise for these individuals. And it showed essentially a 33% increase, or 32 minutes increase in their deep sleep. And I put that up there just because it was a pretty big improvement, much bigger than what you would see in a lot of other studies. The other study that I was really aware of was the Youngstead study from 1995, Influence of Exercise on Human Sleep. This was around the time I was sort of getting interested in how athletes slept and things that can improve their sleep. And the study showed that exercise was related to a small but pretty reliable increase in slow wave sleep. What I found fascinating about this study was their theories as to why would it matter. And if we refer back to body temperature, we did an episode on body temperature. That was episode 25. There is thought to be a link potentially between body temperature and sleep quality. We talked about that in the episode, that reliable, that predictable body temperature curve. We, peak somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It troughs about an hour before we wake up. If that temperature curve can be manipulated, we can improve the quality of sleep. And that was the theory in this paper, was that there was evidence that perhaps elevations in daytime core body temperature could actually act to increase slow wave sleep. So if you think about that arc, that, rise at 4 o'clock, trough about an hour before you go to bed, if you can increase the distance between the peak through exercise potentially during the day and the trough, if we can lower our body temperature through cooling at night and create a bigger curve, a curve with more amplitude, that you might be able to actually increase slow wave sleep. And in this study, it didn't increase by 32 minutes, but it was increased by 3.4 minutes, and that was statistically significant. If we fast forward to the article, Effects of Evening Exercise on Sleep in Healthy Participants, this was a systematic review and meta-analysis. It basically showed that evening exercise seemed to improve deep sleep by 1.3%, essentially going from 96 minutes to 97.248 minutes, or improvement of 1.24 minutes. So when you actually look at the studies showing exercise improvements on deep sleep, there is a bit of a span, but most of the current studies with exercise that you would see in a typical average individual are relatively small. Now, they are statistically significant, meaning that this is not happening via chance, but it's not we're not increasing somebody's deep sleep from, 45 minutes to 2 hours and 10 minutes kind of thing. And this is important to sort of understand, that how much time do we spend in these stages of sleep, that when we generally think about a full complement of sleep or a full night of sleep, we're generally thinking about a healthy individual spending about 20% of their time in deep sleep. So that's important to understand, that going from 20% to 25% is a big, big deal. And for people who monitor their sleep with accurate sleep monitors, you're probably aware of these things. I get people who come in all the time. They're like, I'm only getting 20% of deep sleep during the night. And I'm always reassuring them, look, that's exactly where you want to be. So don't worry about that. The next thing that I want to talk about, the next improvement to deep sleep, the next controllable variable, is meditation. And this is really, really interesting to me. I actually wrote about a particular study in my first book, The Sleep Solution. There was an article called Deepening Sleep by Hypnotic Suggestion. And this was a study where they were looking at sort of a 90-minute nap protocol and having individuals essentially imagine themselves descending like a submarine in deep, dark waters. So you imagine you're in the submarine during this nap protocol, and you would recite the mantra in your head, I'm going deeper, I'm going deeper. And physically imagine yourself descending deeper and deeper into dark, quiet waters. And the individuals who did this sort of meditation mantra during the time of their naps increased their deep sleep by 81% during this 90-minute nap, which is big. Now, I would typically say you're going to see often much more improvement with deep sleep during nap studies than studies that take place during a typical night of sleep, for the most part. There was another study by our friend of the pod, Sarah Mednick, who is the author of Power of the Downstate. and a real expert when it comes to these things. She did a study in 2022 looking at 50 students napping. And during the nap protocol, some were instructed to do a progressive relaxation technique, others were not. And then I think they crossed over because she knows how to design a study, as Sarah does, and showed that the individuals, when they did the progressive relaxation technique, had 10 more minutes or 125% more deep sleep than those who didn't. So I don't think that we can really overstate the value of meditation and our mind state when we go to bed. And I would often do this when travel would sort of cut short my ability to sleep, or I was on some sort of call night and it was a difficult night. I would often get in bed and imagine myself in the submarine, thinking, oh my gosh, this has been a difficult call night. I'm finally getting into bed at 3:00. I've got clinic tomorrow. So even though my duration of time that I have to sleep is limited, I had in my mind that if I imagined the little submarine trick, I could make the quality of the sleep better, even though the quantity was reduced. So shout out to Sarah and her lab. She's outstanding. You all should check out her book. She won the 2022 Sleep Unplugged award last year for her book. She's great. A couple other things. It was a great German study that looked at, this was from 2021, a German lab looking at how relaxing words affected sleep. So the study, individuals were presented with either relaxing words like the word relax, which in German is Entschöpfnen, or easy, and then other words that were sort of more neutral, like the word produce or the word materials. And they showed that individuals who were presented the relaxing words went from 48.32 minutes of deep sleep to 54.81, increasing by about 6.5 minutes or 13%. There was another study too. It was the meditation techniques on deep sleep, and it showed that meditation seemed to improve deep sleep about 6.5%. So these aren't numbers to scoff at. I intentionally put the exercise up there. So we're talking about, somewhere between 1 to 33% in the exercise, probably closer to the 1% in most studies, with meditation and mind state preparation really showing a big effect. And I think it's worth pausing here to understand that anything that we do, the pajamas we wear, the bed we sleep on, the partner we sleep beside, the state of our affairs, our finances, our relationships with others. Did you see a movie that made you happy and full of optimism? Did you watch a show that leaves you scared for the future of our country? Did you check out the 60 Minutes about the naval preparations for a war with China? Like, what is going on in your mind? Because there's a very good chance that the way we move into our bedroom at night is going to influence the quality of our sleep significantly. So, and this is kind of what we talked about in episode 41, how to shut off a racing mind. What is a racing mind? Where does it start? What is it doing to our sleep? And why is it so important that we sit down and meditate? Why is it important that we try a little muse band? Why is it important that we journal at night? Why is it important that we pray if that's what you believe in? I think all of these things set the stage for our best sleep. So it's interesting to think about, is meditation actually furthering our deep sleep, or is it correcting our deep sleep? I don't know if we know the answer to that. Next topic, hydration, which is sort of unusual, but there was a 2023 Texas Tech study that showed hydration might have the ability to improve our deep sleep by as much as 8%, which I thought was a really, really interesting study. I think hydration improves everything that we do. And we talked about this in the tired sleep advice episode. Oh, don't drink water before you go to bed because you might wake up to pee. And I really like this study. I wish I had had this information when I recorded that episode, because this is one of those things where the hydration, yeah, you might get up to pee, but you get up, you pee, you go back to sleep. And over the course of your night, your deep sleep could be improved by as much as 8%. I can promise you this is a topic that I'll relay to my teams. Speaking of my teams, congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They had like a 0.1% chance of even coming close to the playoffs, and they actually made it to the play-in tournament. They beat New Orleans and advanced to the Timberwolves, and unfortunately lost to the Timberwolves. But really excited for this young team and what they do. Hydrate, gentlemen, and we will see you next training camp. Lavender. This is an interesting one. I actually put this in my book as well, too, that there were studies showing lavender in generally hospital environments seemed to improve the quality of sleep, even in studies that were pretty rigorously controlled. I wrote about a study where individuals came into a room, had lavender infused into the room during the night, and then they had a control group getting, I think it was sweet cherry oil or some other similar sweet essence infused into their room, and the people in the lavender room slept better. They crossed them over, so the people who'd gotten lavender one night got the sweet tea oil or whatever it was called, and they didn't sleep as well. So it seemed like lavender uniquely had the ability to improve quality of sleep. It was a small study, but the study was designed pretty well. And there was a 2021 study on, it was a pilot study on essential oil aroma stimulation for enhancing slow wave sleep. There were, I believe, I think it was 22 men and women in the study. And it was the same thing. People came into the study, they had lavender infused into the room or some other scent and, sort of crossed over. What was fascinating was most people were not aware that the oil was, no, I'm sorry, it was 9 22-year-old men or women. So it was only 9 people, but they got the lavender during one experimental night. They got the other scent in another experimental night. And when they asked the subjects, were you aware of any scents during the night? None of them were. So essentially they went in, from their perspective, they went into a room and slept, and went into another room and slept another night. And the individuals who were getting the lavender scent had 21.9% deep sleep versus 19.4. So once again, small numbers, but statistically significant. So it is interesting to think about the scents that we have in our room. And going back once again, just, the scent itself can be very pleasing, can be very relaxing. It's nice at the end of the day to come into a neat, well-made bedroom, which also there's been, I think, studies showing that neat bedrooms increase deep sleep. And one that has a lavender scent. And with that lavender, if you really get into using the lavender spray or the lavender oil, infused into your room, it's a great thing to travel with. Because now, again, when you get to that hotel room, you can spray your lavender that you're used to smelling. So you create not only familiarity with your room through olfaction or smelling, but you also may be actually improving the quality of your sleep in that hotel room before your big presentation. Temperature, we've talked about. We did a whole episode on temperature pretty early in the study that was, or in the show. It was last year, episode 25. And in the study that I found to be really interesting was on 24 postmenopausal women were given either a low heat capacity mattress or a high heat capacity mattress. And the individuals who were on the mattress that was cooling improved their deep sleep by 9.6 minutes or 2.1%. That was a study that was actually done by Phyllis Z, who is a icon in sleep, and we talk about her a lot on the show. Wonderful person too. I always think that DraftKings should do, they have these little bet. I'm not a fan of gambling, but I think that DraftKings should do a little bet every year as to, will Phyllis Z give the keynote to the sleep meeting wherever it's being held? And that would be, you could place your bet. Will she be the keynote speaker? Because she typically is. That'd be a safe bet. If you ever confronted with that opportunity to place that bet, I would bet that Phyllis Z will be the keynote speaker of the sleep meeting that you're getting ready to go to next week. And she deserves it because she's killer. Her sleep talks are fantastic. So it was interesting because there was another study that was actually a German study done in 2022 with the same sort of setup with the cooling mattress or the not cooling mattress, and showed that the cooling mattress seemed to improve deep sleep by about 7 minutes. It was 61.9 minutes all the way up to 68.9 minutes. So the temperature of our room is important, but the temperature that we're sleeping on, I sleep on a Tempur-Pedic cool Lux Breeze, and it's a very cool mattress. I remember getting it out and putting it on the bed and just kind of stretching out on it before all the linens were on it, and the surface is really cool. I mean, if you go to a mattress firm, again, I work for sleep.com, who does scientific content for sleep.com and mattress firm, so there is a connection here. But I mean, go to a mattress firm, don't buy anything if you don't want to, but just go lie down on some of the different mattresses. And when you lie down on some of these cooling mattresses, you can feel very significant differences in the way heat is being sort of dissipated from your body, and these studies showed that it really makes a big difference. You don't have to go to a mattress firm in every state to do that. You can probably walk out of your door, walk half a mile in any direction, and probably encounter a mattress firm. So it shouldn't be too hard to try that out. But don't underestimate temperature manipulation as a way to improve deep sleep. Finally, I'm going to mention alcohol, because there's a lot of misunderstandings, I think, about alcohol. Alcohol probably does, in the acute setting, influence and increase slow wave sleep or deep sleep during the first half of the night. This has been shown going all the way back to the Williams McLean study in 86. Cars did a study, Sagawa. There's lots of research showing that, yes, if you take an individual who's not particularly acclimated to alcohol, give them a small amount of alcohol prior to the night, it does seem to increase slow wave sleep during the first half of the night. It comes along with some other negatives, lots of other negatives. But if we're just looking at slow wave sleep, there may be benefit there. Now, the problem is when you continue to drink, that the chronic alcohol user sees a pretty big decline, most likely in slow wave sleep, and a lot of other negatives that come along with that. That was shown as far back as in 1975 in the Allen and Wagman paper, and there's been numerous studies showing that since. So it's sort of like what we've talked about with caffeine. If you want the advantage of the caffeine, it is taken 30 minutes to an hour before your athletic event, and you don't drink any more caffeine for the next 24 hours or longer prior to your next ingestion for the benefit of it. When you chronically ingest caffeine at high doses, you lose that benefit and actually might start to impair performance. You're probably seeing the same thing like that with alcohol. So not something that we would recommend as a great resource for improving the quality of your sleep, because even if you are increasing deep sleep or slow wave sleep, you're harming a lot of other things, increasing arousals in the second half of the night, frequent urination, etc. Not worth it. So that's it. We're here at just about 30 minutes for the show. Really appreciate you tuning in. Again, if you want to contact the show or talk about your secrets for deep sleep or your favorite Radiohead album, that is Dr. Chris Winter TikTok, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter. Check out our YouTube page, Sleep Unplugged. Check out my books, The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep's Broken and How to Fix It, as well as The Rested Child, Why Your Tired, Wired, or Irritable Child May Have a Sleep Disorder and How to Help. Until next week, I'm Dr. Chris Winter. Sleep well.